Okay, folks, it is 6 o'clock and it is Tuesday, November 26th, 2024. We're in the council chambers of the city of Platteville, and I am calling the regularly scheduled meeting of the Common Council to order. Colette will start with roll call.
Tom Knoll,
Here.
Lynn Parrott,
Here.
Kathy Kopp,
Here.
Todd Casper,
Here.
Barbara Doss,
Here.
Bob Gates,
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Okay, we'll start tonight's meeting with 3 public hearings, one of which has 2 parts. So the public hearing format is we have a staff presentation, we take an applicant statement, we hear any public statements in favor, any public statements against, any public statements in general. The council then has a discussion. Then we have a motion to close the public hearing, and after that, the council would take action. So that's kind of the format of a public hearing. So we'll be going through that at least 3 times tonight. So the first item for public hearing tonight is ordinance 24-12. This is a property rezone for 645 East Main Street. And so we'll start with staff presentation. Joe.
Yes, so the property at 645 East Main Street, it's a vacant parcel that's been for sale for several years now. The property is zoned M1 heavy commercial light manufacturing as it sits there currently. That district allows actually quite a variety of commercial, industrial, warehousing, manufacturing type uses. But there's been no interest or very little interest in that property with that current zoning. Primarily because of, I think, the size of the property. It's really too small for those types of uses that would go in that district. The parcel is only 50 feet wide by 74 feet deep, so it's just under 4,000 square feet. And also that portion of Main Street is almost a dead end in some respects, so the traffic count is very low, so it's not very appealing for a lot of other commercial uses. So there's been very limited interest in that property, even though it's been for sale for several years. So the applicant who submitted this rezoning request submitted an offer to purchase contingent upon a change of zoning. They'd like to use it to construct a single-family home on that lot. So the request is to change the zoning to R2, 1 and 2 family residential district, which allows single family and theoretically duplex, but based on that size lot, a duplex would not be allowable. So it would be basically single family only. So if you look at that neighborhood, there is a kind of a variety of single family duplex residential to the north. And then there's a recreational property, the skate park, the trail area is nearby. They've got some a building that they use for some of their storage uses. And then there are some manufacturing uses, primarily the cement plant to the east. But otherwise, most of the manufacturing commercial are really remnant uses in that area because this is where the railroad used to come in through to the city. So it kind of developed initially as warehousing and manufacturing as a result of that. But the trend since then has been for those uses to go elsewhere in the city. And some of those properties have already been rezoned for residential use. So it's staff's opinion that based on what I mentioned, the size of the property, there's also a slope issue for that property. The limited traffic count on that street, it's really not a good location for commercial or industrial type uses. So residential seems much more appropriate for the other uses in that area and the size of the lot. So staff would recommend approval of rezoning it to R2, 1 and 2 family residential. Questions?
Okay, any questions of Joe relative to his presentation? Joe, the next thing is the applicant statement. Is the applicant in the room?
I do not see him.
And so who is the applicant? Because it doesn't even say in your stuff.
I forget the gentleman's name. He owns a construction company. Just a second, I can tell you. Well, it's DRJ Services. I don't remember his first name, but he was originally from the Platteville area, and his business now is in the Quad Cities. And he's actually interested in coming back to this area for construction activities, which would be great because we have a need for some additional contractors.
And he was aware that this was on the agenda tonight.
Yes.
Okay. I've had nobody register in favor. I have had no, anybody register against. I have had no registration in general. So council discussion.
I have a question for Joe. What about parking space? Amount of parking that the lot would provide? And number two question is, as far as asphalt on the area or concrete on the parking area?
So the ordinance does require off-street parking for a new residential. I believe it's 2 spaces. It would have to be hard surfaced. It doesn't stay whether it's asphalt or concrete or pavers. Any of those would meet that requirement.
These 2 spaces.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Then I take a motion to close the public hearing for this. Okay, motion by Bob, second by Kathy to close the public hearing on ordinance 2412, property rezone. Colette will vote.
Null,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, we'll do the second public hearing then. This is on ordinance 24-13, property rezone. This is 240 North Court Street.
action on this one first.
Oh, yeah, we just took action on the motion to close, didn't we? All right. Do I have a motion on the 2412 property rezone?
I have a motion.
Okay,
I so move that we approve and allow me to read it properly, I guess. Motion to approve rezoning the property of 645 East Main Street to R2, 1 and 2 family residential.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Todd and a second by Lynn to approve rezoning this property. Now we'll vote again.
Null,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, now we'll move on to ordinance 24-13, property rezone to 50 North Court Street. Thank you, Ken. Joe.
Yeah, so the, excuse me, the property at 250 North Court Street is owned by Family Advocates. It was their shelter location until they built their new facility and moved out. Since then, it's been for sale and vacant. I did a little research on the property. It appears that it was built in 1966, the current building, as a convent for St. Mary's Church, which is a block away. And then approximately 1978, it was sold, and it appeared just private individuals, so it must have been a rental property of some sort. And then it was sold in 1989 to Family Advocates and has been used as their shelter and office since that time. So the current zoning for that property is I-1 institutional, which allows a variety of school, church, government type uses, but limited other uses beyond basically public entity type uses. So because of that zoning, there's been limited interest in that property from potential purchasers. It doesn't appear that other people have had the ability to find a good use for that property. So the current applicant for this rezoning request has submitted an offer to purchase contingent upon changing the zoning of the property to R3 multifamily residential. Excuse me. So that property allows single family duplex and multifamily uses. So their proposal is to use it as a residential rooming house. So they would lease out the bedrooms separately, and then the bathrooms, kitchen, living area would be used in common. So, excuse me. So my understanding, there's been several questions that have come up regarding this proposal. One is regarding the potential number of occupants that could be living there. So there's several code requirements that would kind of dictate the maximum occupancy. The building code looks at the number and size of the bedrooms and the bathroom facilities that are available. So based on those criteria, they could theoretically have up to 16 occupants that would be living in that structure. And then our zoning ordinance would also
16.
have
16.
a restriction based on the number of off-street parking spaces that are provided,
Six here.
which is basically required at a 75% rate. So as the parking lot is currently striped, there are 5 spaces, which would allow up to 6 occupants. But there's also a storage building that's located in that parking lot that I think if they removed that and reconfigured the parking a little bit, they could probably get 8 spaces in that lot, which would allow up to 10 occupants. So then there's also a question about garbage collection. So this would be, as a rooming house, it would be treated the same as other multifamily properties. So they'd have to contract for the garbage collection privately. And I just did a look around for other rooming houses in the city where we actually have 11. Currently, most of those are fraternities and sororities, but there are a few other ones. But 6 of those have a dumpster, and then 5 use other rollout containers for their garbage collection. And since this is an existing building, there's no new construction, there would not be a requirement for screening of the dumpster if a dumpster was provided. And then there are no other specific city ordinances or requirements related to rooming houses. So in staff's opinion, the R3 district would be appropriate for this location. There are other rental properties, including some multifamily properties in that area. And the rooming house itself would be actually very similar to the shelter use and the convent use for that, which were the historical uses of that building. So since there are no exterior modifications that are really being planned, I think the impact to the neighborhood with this change would be very minor. So staff would recommend approval of the zoning change to R3 multifamily. Any questions?
Questions?
I have a question. I want a clarification. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph. Building code would allow up to 16 occupants. And then next it talks about a rooming house. And this one says that the storage building, last paragraph, building is removed and the parking reconfigured, the property could provide up to 8 spaces, which would allow up to 10 occupants. So what's different between those two?
So the building code is looking at the structure itself, the size and number of bedrooms and the bathroom facilities. So based on that, the building code doesn't care anything about parking. So based on that, they could have up to 16, but the zoning would be more restrictive because it also includes the parking requirements. And based on the size of that parking, then it would be probably up to a maximum of 10. So the most restrictive would
So if
apply
it's a rooming house, the maximum is 10.
based on the estimated number of parking spaces.
And then what about the parking requirements? Again, I asked the question about parking space required and what the hardness has to be as far as the parking space, concrete or asphalt.
The parking lot is already hard surfaced.
Sufficient.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Kathy? Of Joe?
It's just a question, Joe. I'm still a little confused about rooming house. And I understand that you laid out every city requires, but a rooming house, I'm assuming there has to be a manager there. I mean, somebody that's sort of in charge or not? No?
There is no requirement
Nothing.
in their ordinances, and I'm not aware that the other rooming houses that I'm aware of do not have on-site management.
Know if the individuals that live in a rooming house have a lease? I guess I'm
Yes.
just wondering okay, so
Yeah.
there is somebody that's dictating who goes in there because
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they sign a lease, basically, instead of a house where you got to find three other roommates to live with you, you just sign a lease for yourself based on the bedroom that you're going to occupy.
That answers my question. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Otherwise, I believe the applicants are in the audience, so we'll take an applicant statement if you would like. You can. You start by introducing who you are and your address.
All right, I'm Mike Worth, and my wife and my boy right here, which we're the ones that are gonna try converting it over, but for the parking lot, I was thinking we could have 9 spots because it's 62 by 50, so you could have six of them going at an angle like they're already they're already marked out. And then you can have 3 of them go the long way when we move that shed out. So I mean,
Yeah, that could be, I didn't measure it, I just
yeah,
eyeballed it.
so it's 62 by 50, and then we can run through, that gives you 20 foot for the next 3 cars to go along that back lines, but. So there would be 9 spots for that, and then the dumpsters, I mean, on the back side, it's a sidewalk going to the back side of it. I don't know if you guys got a picture of the place or if you're familiar with it, but I mean, in the spring or whatever, if it's already cut out to the road, if I can cement it, and then we'll put the dumpsters, back there, so then they can roll them out to the road when the dumpster guy comes or whatever. You wouldn't even have to cut out nothing because it's already cut out at the curb, it's already kind of cut out for a driveway, really is what it is. I mean, and for the manager, we plan on, taking a pay cut on whoever would kind of be the head taker or something like that. And then they could call us if there's any problems, then we go with, off of that, but.
Yeah, I guess if you can lay out, I mean, I think the important thing is you have to have 70, whatever your number is, you have to have 75% for
Yep.
parking.
So we figured if we had 9 parking spots, then we could have 12 people, right? So then you can have 6 on the top, 6 on the bottom. And we'd make it, if it's all women on the top, then they can't access the bottom. Then the bottom could be all boys or,
Or whatever.
we don't want to have it co-ed in case of anything, but.
Any questions of Mr. Worth?
Well, I had a comment. I'm excited that you guys are wanting to do this because I do know a lot of people who there's a need for just basic even transient while people are getting on their feet or extra college students so I'm really excited that you guys are doing this. Mhm.
Any other questions? Comments? I think this would be a good reuse of that building. It's certainly seen its usage changes over the years.
Yeah, it's almost set up already. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a pretty nice little building, I think.
Good. All right, well, thank you. All right, again, I've had nobody register to speak in favor. I've had nobody register to speak against or to speak in general. So any additional council discussion? Then I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion
Move
to close.
the public hearing.
Okay, Ken and Todd, Ken made the motion, Todd seconded it. Colette will vote.
Null,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, now we'll take action on ordinance 24-13, property rezone for 250 North Court Street.
Make a motion. I make a motion to approve rezoning the property at 250 North Court Street to R3 multifamily residential.
Second.
Okay, motion by Bob, second by Todd to rezone this property. Colette will vote.
Null,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper? Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
motion carries.
And to the Worths, welcome to Platteville. I know you're not really from here, but welcome to Platteville. We're glad you've chosen our community to do business.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the third public hearing tonight, and that is on the 2025 City of Platteville budget. This will be resolution 24-19. And then 24-20. Do we have to actually, we'll have to have two motions, but we can do them as one public hearing, I think.
That's right. Yes, thank you.
Oh, I said it correctly, 2025. Yeah, I said it correctly. On the agenda, it says 2024.
I just saw it.
Oh, apologies
But
for that.
it is the 2025, and that is what's in here. So, Nicola,
Thank you. So the budget process is very long. It starts in July and runs all the way through till today. And I thank the council for its participation through that long process and all of the staff too. And so at this point, we have a 2025 City of Platteville proposed Common Council budget. The general fund has revenue and expense budget of $10,271,756. And the revenue and expense budget for all the funds together, with the exclusion of the airport and utilities who have separate commissions that adopt those budgets, the total for all the other funds is $35,487,565. Now, the proposed budgets that you're looking at today includes some adjustments from what was proposed by the city manager for the operating and CIP budgets, which were reviewed by the council on September the 24th and October the 15th. I won't go through all of those adjustments, but you can see them laid out there in the staff presentation. And if later on, if there's any questions about any of those adjustments, please feel free to ask. So we received the finalized statement of assessment for the city from the state of Wisconsin, and the final assessed value with TIF districts included was $972,524,700, and that is a net increase from last year of $167 and about $500,000. The change includes increases in real property assessed value of $70.8 million increase in residential, $105.9 million increase in commercial, and $4.7 million increase in manufacturing assessed value. Now, in the 2023 Wisconsin Act 12, personal property taxes were eliminated. So the assessed value for personal property taxes in 2024 is zero. In 2023, personal property assessed value was $13.9 million. And the state of Wisconsin has provided some supplemental aid to take the place of personal property taxes for the city. The updated proposed tax levy is $5,388,319. And that reflects an increase of $17,743 from the October 8th city manager budget. And the allocation of that levy is for the general fund, $3,241,178. For the debt service fund, $1,710,478. For the capital improvement fund, $400,000. And for the Brodsky Center Fund, $36,663. So that levy applied against the total assessed value results in an assessed tax rate of $6.43 per $1,000 of assessed value, which is an 11.5% decrease in the tax rate from last year. That decrease is due to the market revaluation that we had in 2024. The budget impact is, of course, to create the 2025 City of Platteville budget, and staff recommends approving the 2025 budget resolution. And then we also have a separate staff note and resolution for the wages for 2025. Questions?
okay, first questions on the budget. We've all looked at this multiple times.
Well, I'll make a comment. My comment is that you're reading on 2419. I read this document according to the page number so that in following this through, it would have been helpful for you to give the page numbers, because that's the way I read it. In other words, as it was, I just had to kind of guess where you were. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Just going to thank the city staff for the obvious hard work that was done in putting this together. Obviously, it's not something that's simple, but it was made in a very readable and understandable way. So thank you.
And I also offer thanks. Unfortunately, there are a whole lot more wants and needs than we have money to fund wants and needs. And so I'm sure that everybody on the staff didn't get what they thought they needed. And but I'm happy that people worked together to present a budget, and we didn't have a lot of, well, we didn't hear a lot of, maybe you heard. But so thank you to everyone for working together to bring this together. I believe we need a motion on the budget. If there are no additional questions.
Make a
Motion to
motion.
close the public hearing, I believe.
Oh,
first.
can we do both of them can we do the other one too and do one public hearing for both? Because we haven't even talked about.
That's true. We could go back and discuss the
2420, and can't
the
we
second
just-
resolution, and I think they're both covered under the same public hearing.
Right, they're both covered under the same
You're
public
right.
hearing. So
My-
I think we'll move
my
on
mistake.
to resolution 24-20, which is authorizing wage rates.
Thank you. And let me just catch up here for a second. Okay, so in conjunction with the 2025 budget, we typically bring to the council a resolution authorizing the salaries and rates of pay of employees for the year 2025. The 2025 salaries reflect a 3% base increase to the City of Platteville compensation plan, and a step increase for all eligible employees is included in the proposed 2025 budget to move the city forward in achieving implementation of the updated 2023 City of Platteville compensation plan. The proposed budget also includes a wage increase of 4% for police officers, which is part of the Wisconsin Professional Police Association union contract, which will aid in recruitment and retention initiatives. And as I mentioned, the cost of the compensation plan changes are included in the budget. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 24-20, which will authorize the wage rates for employees for the year. And in the attachment, you can see the ranges for those different positions in the compensation plan. And of course, the actual position rate depends on the person and on longevity and things like that.
Okay, so Ken, this is on pages 238 and 239, I believe, of your book Nicola just
Page 12.
page
Where are you?
12. Keep going back farther.
Which way?
Right there, authorizing salary and rates of pay. That's what she just. The next two pages are the salary schedules that we would be adopting. So anybody with questions on the wage rates of pay as presented in Resolution 24-20. This gives the wage ranges for the various positions, of which there must be about 35 or 40. I didn't count them. I'm just assuming.
I see a sample motion on the salary.
Right.
It says excluding union. So is that saying that the money is going to be allocated to the police, but the police themselves set the salary?
What it means is that the wages for police officers that are included in the union contract are adopted by the council when the council adopts the union contract or approves the union contract. And that was done a year or so ago because it's a 3-year contract. So the police officer wages are already approved by the council, and the library wages are actually set by the library board.
And that's what I'm getting, when I look at the police is a union, and they were set separate way back with Act 10 and that big action. And then the other part that was included was
But the wage rate for the police were set in the contract that we adopted maybe 3 or
2023, I believe, for 4, 5, and 6.
so those wage rates were set in 2023 when we adopted the police union contract.
okay.
Okay. Okay, anybody else with questions? Okay, I would take, I guess, yeah, anybody else with questions? Then I would take a motion to close the public hearing on the 2025 budget.
I so move that we close the
Public hearing?
public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Tom and a second by Bob to close the public hearing on the 2025 budget. We'll vote.
Null,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, council action, I would first ask for a motion on resolution 24-19, appropriating the necessary funds for the operation and administration of the city of Platteville for the year 2025.
Make a motion.
Okay,
I move to adopt resolution 24-19 appropriating the necessary funds for the operation and administration of the city of Platteville for the year 2025 in the amount of $35,487,565 as presented.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Todd and a second by Lynn to adopt resolution 24-19. Colette will vote.
Null,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
motion carries.
Now I would take a motion on resolution 24-20, authorizing wage rates of the permanent employees excluding union, library personnel, and city manager for the year 2025.
I'll make a motion. I move to adopt Resolution 2420, authorizing the wage rates of permanent employees excluding union and library personnel and the city manager for the year 2025.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bob and a second by Todd. Colette will vote.
Null,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
yes.
motion carries.
Okay, I guess that completes the public hearing portion of our agenda tonight. So we'll move on to consideration of the consent agenda. We have council minutes in the, all items can be approved on a single motion and vote due to the routine nature of previous discussion. If you want anything pulled, let me know. Council minutes from November 12th, the regular meeting, payment of bills. I have no appointments for boards or commissions tonight, and we do have licenses, 1- and 2-year operator licenses to serve and sell alcohol as in your packet, and taxi driver licenses as in your packet. Your pleasure.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as published.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Kathy and Tom to approve the consent agenda as presented. Colette will vote.
Null,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, next on our agenda are citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. I'm going to start by calling on Clint, who's going to talk about these cute little thank you notes that were on our desk tonight.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'd like to recognize the cards that you see here. They were brought in to us by the kindergartner students of Neil Wilkins Elementary today to thank our employees and our elected officials for the job that they do. And I'd also like to thank Jody Richards for hosting that crew this afternoon. And I think she scored some nice photos with them as well, which we'll share with the council post-meeting. Thank you.
All right, I've had one person's request to speak tonight. Kevin Reed has asked to speak on the purpose of government.
The sole purpose of government is the protection of its citizens, not the sole, but the primary purpose. This is a record. This is one of my records that I pulled out from a Board of Directors meeting, September 28th, 1992. Meeting of directors and officers followed regular scheduled meeting for September. Directors present were Dave McWilliams, Dwayne Schuler, Harley McWilliams, your favorite veteran, Paul Budden, and Frank Hall. Officers were present were Chief Ryder, Assistant Chiefs Lady, Ryder, Wetter, and Secretary Schmeichel. Dave Schmeichel prepared all the records that I have in my position. Kevin Reed then talked to the officers and directors about Lenny Lonsberg driving the night of fire in Big Patch. Group then interviewed Lenny Lonsberg and Bob Holzer. He was a police officer, right, Chief? Didn't you rub shoulders with him in the 90s? The group then presented the policy, no drinking until after the meetings, request members not respond. Disciplinary action will be taken. None of this stuff was ever done. The Platteville Police Department has a long, corrupt history of corruptness, basically obstructing justice. Your little men over there in the park could have never killed the Platteville Fire Department without the blessing of the Platteville Police Department. Platteville Police looked over that all the time. Go ahead, my son. Whatever. Okay, on May 24th of this year at 5:30 p.m., Officer Forsyth showed up at my door wanting to know about some text messages I sent to Kathy Kopp. So I took 15 minutes of my time telling that little douchebag officer what I sent. Hey, Kathy Kopp or her concerned husband, they could have called over or texted over. No, they had to send the cops. And Officer Boyseth, like I call him, he was the same one that came to do a welfare wallet check on me, in which case I shouted him and his partner right out of my building. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here right now. Get the fuck out of here. That's how that went down. When they started asking me about my finances, who I give my money to. This is a letter from my daughter. First paragraph. Dad, I'm not upset that you think I called the cops on you. Sister, Mom, and I were concerned about your safety and the safety of others. So that led us to our decision. I know in my heart I could not call the cops on you. So that led us to Mom calling. It's not her fault. We wanted to ensure everyone's safety. Now there's somebody with concern. Why didn't the police officers come over and ask me, hey, how you doing? Is everything all right? No, what I got was, why did you give your daughters extra money and why did you tell them it was part of their inheritance? That's no damn business of your police department, their chief. Now you people have been operating a long time under the radar. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. I got so many records. Judge Day has them. Outgoing district attorney, incoming. Mrs. Doss, this problem is not going to end. You got a very corrupt police department, a culture of corruption that's gone on at least 40, 50 years. I think you better be calling the Wisconsin Department of Justice to get them in here to investigate these people. You can't do it. I don't think any other law enforcement around here is going to want to do it. You need some fresh eyes on the police. Because when you try to steamroll a citizen, a senior citizen, a veteran, and you try to enroll him in the criminal justice system, that's not right. I did nothing wrong when you tried to enlist me in the criminal justice system, Chief. And the words I have for you, buddy, you better start thinking about what you did to Russell Brook. That man would be alive if your cops had come over and taken my statement about the 2 times that he threatened me bodily. You would have locked him up because that little man was an ankle-wearing monitor douchebag criminal. You could have put him back in the jail. He wouldn't be alive today. Wouldn't have been out there killing himself on the highway. There's nothing so dangerous for manipulators as people that think for themselves. Meg Greenfield said that. Y'all have a good evening. Hey, this is not going away until you get that statue out of the park and you bust up that honor roll, put some other flowery statement up there. You bust up the men's names because they're not honorable. And I will never stand for it, especially in that Veterans Park.
Okay. I have no other citizens who have asked to speak. I would point out that next Monday night at the Plan Commission meeting, the student group that has been looking at the property that we bought on the east side of town earlier this year is going to make their presentation. And Howard, is that at 7?
Yes.
7
o'clock.
Howard, pardon?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. And will they be first on?
Yes.
Okay, so anybody who wants to see the presentation that the students make and may have questions, I think you're free to come and be in the audience. It won't be it'll be a Plan Commission meeting, but it'll be a presentation by the student group. Okay, reports in your packet, library board packet, Bob,
Nothing to add.
water and sewer, Gillian, Knoll, or
Nothing
Lynn,
to add.
No addition.
community safe routes.
Nothing to add.
And how about parks, recreation, and forestry, Bob?
Nothing to add.
Okay, then let's move on into the action items on our agenda tonight. We'll start with ordinance 24-14, amending chapter 11, garbage and refuse collection and disposal. It's actually, Howard.
Yes, thank you. Chapter 11 details how garbage, recycling, and yard waste is prepared, collected, and disposed of. For many years, we have purchased specially made plastic bags stenciled with City of Platteville on the side. They can be used for solid waste in excess of the current limit of 2 bags. And these bags are also used for collection and disposal of yard waste. They're commonly called dollar bags because they're sold retail for $1. We have an arrangement with Southwest Opportunities where their people take the large rolls and separate them into smaller bundles for distribution. The prices of bags have been increasing. To get discount pricing, we would need to purchase a pallet of bags at a time and have potential storage problems, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're recommending is stickers that can be also sold with minimal cost and storage. But in order to authorize that, staff needs to propose these revisions to Chapter 11. Last time, council members specifically asked whether Faraday Incorporated reviewed the changes. They have, and they find no other adjustments are necessary. There were questions regarding section 11.03L, preparation and collection of recyclable materials, and their contention was that it's more about the preparation of the recyclables and that those requirements do not change whether the collection is pre-sorted or single stream. We intend to use local printing services, and so staff is recommending approval of this ordinance to modify Chapter 11.
Okay, questions? Going from bags to stickers. If there are no questions, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance 24-14, amending chapter 11, garbage and refuse collection and stickers.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Ken to approve ordinance 24-14, allowing stickers rather than garbage, than plastic bags. Colette will vote.
Knoll,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to the next action item, which is Resolution 24-21, authorizing the issuance and sale of $3.135 million in water and sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2024C, and providing for the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to those bonds. Nicola.
Thank you. Back in October, the council approved the issuance of water and sewer revenue bonds to fund capital projects in the amount of approximately $2,900,000. With that reminder, I am going to hand over to our municipal advisor, Brian Raymer, who is joining us via Zoom. Brian.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
for staying home when you have a cold.
Yeah, I hope I don't cough too much through this. But thank you for letting me stay home. I'm able to share my screen. Is that preferable?
Sure.
Okay. And then let's do a bigger view. Okay. Are you able to see the sale day report?
Yes.
Yes, and I did
Okay.
provide the council with a hard copy on your desk, council members, if you would prefer to flip through the hard copy.
Great. Well, we did take the sale this morning at 10 a.m. and we did get 7 bids on the issuance, which is really good news. We always, of course, want more than one. Generally, anything 3 or higher is really good, but the more you get, it just kind of shows the proof in terms of interest that the market has in the issuance, which not only speaks to the structure and the size of the debt issue, but also the issuer itself. So what I'm trying to say there is continued good operations in terms of the water and sewer system and financial management, which we'll kind of get into. The low bidder in terms of the underwriter was Baird out of Milwaukee. Their low bid was at 3.89% in terms of true interest costs. The high bid was at 4. If you remember every sale day report, what we try to show there is there's a benefit to not just going to one underwriter, right? You could land anywhere within that spread and you wouldn't know could have somebody offered something lower. So the benefit of doing a competitive sale is to have everybody put their best foot forward, and the one who does wins the deal. So that said, some of the other elements in terms of this sale would just be, as a reminder, the bonds maturing May 1st of 2034 and thereafter are callable. Therefore, you could prepay this debt should you need to either restructure or identify savings. But we did get a premium bid, which means they pay you up front for higher coupons or interest rates that you'll pay, but they pay you up front for that. And therefore, we were able to downsize from the pre-sale report about $110,000. You could expect to receive your funds December 18th. Should you move forward with this, which we would recommend doing. The last item that I do want to highlight, we kind of have our typical sale day report here. If you're interested in the bids that came in, et cetera, what was financed, the change in terms of the bond size, how we got down 110,000. That's a result of a premium that you receive. But my main thing that I did want to point out that we kind of talked about at the pre-sale report is when we focus on the utilities on an isolated basis, remember you're issuing these as a combined pledge that you're promising bondholders, both the water utility and the sewer utility will provide enough revenue to make a payment for your existing debt and now this new debt on top of it. So on a combined basis, on the right-hand side of table 4, we're doing pretty well. However, water is carrying the load, meaning that the sewer utility is a little bit behind in terms of its responsibility towards debt coverage. So I just bring this up to kind of say, one, it's the most important element to the credit rating that you currently have. We would hate to see that go away. Two, we did provide within the financial management plan to the utility committee a plan of a series of rate adjustments for the sewer utility, not only for this issue, but right going into the future. So I just kind of urge the city to kind of continue on that plan and understand that the sewer utility does have a little bit of work to do. And I think that's just relative to the utilities do realize a significant amount of inflation, also volatile expenses. So we just don't want the city to get too far behind, and then, years from now, if nothing's done on the rate side, right, that you get dinged on the rating for the revenue pledge. So it was a highlight of the rating report, which we can, is at the back end of this packet as well, where you can kind of see the downside scenario, which is the bottom of this page, which is page 13 of what was handed to you. So again, they don't want that debt service coverage, which they shorthand as DSC, to fall short. So again, one thing to just kind of keep your eyes on. It's all been part of the plan. I just want to make sure that the plan keeps on getting carried through. So with that, I can take any questions, or you can go to your motion.
Okay, anybody with questions on the issue of this $3,025,000 in revenue bonds for the water and sewer system?
Madam President, I would just like to let the council know that when the motion is made, it will need to update to the new amount as on the front page of the sale day report. So as you just mentioned, instead of saying the 3,135,000, it would be the 3,025,000.
Questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion.
Make a motion. I move to adopt resolution 24-21, authorizing the issuance and sale of $3,025,000. Let me catch myself. Water and Sewer System Revenue Bond Series 2024C of the City of Platteville, Grant County, Wisconsin, and providing for the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to the bonds.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Todd and a second by Kathy to adopt resolution 24-21, authorizing the issuance and sale of these bonds. Colette will vote.
No.
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Brian, thank you for joining us, and thank you for what you do in terms of helping us to maintain this rating. And I extend that same thanks to our staff here, Nicola and your group, and Ryan and Howard and the Water and Sewer Commission. It takes work to keep our ratings what they are. Okay, good night,
Thank you.
Brian.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on then to contract 9-24, snow and ice removal.
Hope we don't need it anytime soon, but yes, annually we seek bids for contractors to enforce our snow and ice ordinance. We would have the cost billed to the owner plus an administration fee. At this point, there was one bid from Holman Lawn Care and Snow Removal. They have done the work in previous years. However, this year they're quoting $300 minimum for snow removal only, $500 per location minimum for snow and ice removal with salting, a lot more expensive than in the past. Option one would be to award the bid to Holman Lawn Care. Option 2 would be to reject the bid and direct staff to have Parks Division do the work. And we would suggest 150 per location. It is important to note that at this point in time, the crew is short one person, down one person. And it is likely that any enforcement action will be delayed and could potentially result in overtime for the crew to make this work. So I have basically two options. You can either go with option 1 to award the contract or option 2 to reject the contract. And those are here in front of you at this point.
Okay, folks, discussion.
Yes, you say, Howard, that the crew's short one person right now, or Bob.
Yeah.
If that one person were to be hired, would there be enough crew to, I guess, cover, I don't know if you could call any winter a common snowfall amount, but without going into a lot of overtime?
I don't know, it'd depend on the amount of snow, obviously, but the new person has been offered a job, it's accepted, will start December 15th. If there's a lot of snow events, but we do have protocol on importance, and this ends up being at the bottom, I shouldn't say that way,
Close to the
but you know what I
bottom,
mean? It's,
Well, you have to do the plowing of.
yeah, we gotta do all the sidewalks in other cities and the alleys and the lots, and then we go to the compliance issue, is how I should phrase it. So we try not to spend a lot of overtime. Now, if we were short, a person, then there is a lot of overtime, but you're welcome.
But would this be an incentive? If we adopted this contract, would it be an incentive for people to actually take care of their own sidewalks?
It would be a real eye-opener the first time they get a bill.
I understand that, but kind of reminds me years ago when we had people come in and complain of $50 parking tickets in areas where we had no parking, and they wanted that lowered because it was too much to pay. And it was like, I think that was our point. If it's too much to pay, maybe you won't park where you're not supposed to park, right? So if it's too much to pay, maybe you'll shovel your snow instead of expect somebody else to do it. I don't know. What are other people's feelings?
I'm just wondering, what's your expectation of compliance with it being at the rate that they're proposing?
Well, traditionally, because of the nature of Platteville with the turnover in people renting houses every few years, there's usually an annual learning curve. And so the first 1 or 2 snowfalls, we end up having 30, 40 places that get dinged by this, and then they learn really quickly, and then it calms down to 5 or 6 at every snowfall.
And the regulation is that snow be removed from your sidewalk every 48 hours, or what is it?
Within 36 hours.
36
is what
hours.
the ordinance says.
$500 is a pretty big ding.
I know, $500 is a pretty big.
So all of that would be assessed to the homeowner or the property owner?
It's assessed to the property owner, and if it's a rental property, then it's up to the property owner to allocate it to renters if that's what's in the contract.
But the property owner is responsible, it's the one that is billed?
That is correct.
Okay.
So Howard, explain to us when it says per location and per hour. So does that mean the first hour is $300 and the second hour is $300, or the first hour is $600 and every hour after that is $300?
Sorry, the intent is that the minimum is $300 up to the first hour of work. And then after
One
1 hour of work, then it's an additional
it's another-
$300.
Okay.
Um,
Or 500 if it
or
was.
500,
I see.
depending on whether salting is required.
And and Bob, you have you don't have part-time people that you can call in.
We do not for this. I mean, it's not like a seasonal position.
Well, it's kind of like a seasonal position.
Well, with seasonal though, they can expect to work, 3
Right.
months or 4 months. Here it'd be like, I can call you in and then when it snow,
Right.
yeah.
There might
It'd be
be
nice if we
people
could have such a thing, but we don't,
Could we?
Maybe, I mean, we'd have to put it out for an ad and see if that's a possibility. But I suspect probably not if we only got one bid for a contractor.
Yeah, but a contractor has to do, a contract, that's a different kind of thing. A contractor would be a different kind of thing, I think. I don't know. What's your pleasure?
I have a question for option 2. Where does the $150 come? I mean, maybe up that if it pulls in staff time that would potentially increase overtime, would that help offset it?
That's a Nicola question more than a Bob question.
So Kathy is saying
Well,
rather
I'm-
than
I'm just
100,
saying, what if
we
we
said
took the
150,
to
why don't we make it to
200?
200?
Yeah.
I don't think that's actually a me question. I don't know where the 150 came from.
No, I mean.
No,
I don't
where
care
would
where it
go, I
came
think
from,
is
but-
No,
to
I
be
think the question
aligned.
is how was
How
the
did we
amount
arrive
of
at
150
150?
determined?
That was kind of a discussion that I had with Bob regarding what we felt was appropriate for the amount of staff time required, because the reality is that each property, unless you happen to have an extremely long sidewalk, they use equipment and it's usually done in 10, 15 minutes or less per property. So,
It's less of a manpower question. What we have is the equipment. So we actually have the equipment and the equipment costs a lot of money, especially if we're going to go driving around to each different. So that's kind of where the 150 an hour came from. We pay our guys, even in overtime, you're $40 to $50 an hour. So you got to put the equipment on there as well.
I'm just wondering if it's high enough for that second option.
I thought your
I
question
I
was,
agree. I think
where does the
$300
150
up to
go?
$500 would be a sticker shock, but I'm more concerned about staffing. The impact of staffing to get it done, because we could adopt this, and if we couldn't get it done, then kind of a moot point too. But I think,
What was the contract last year? Howard, do you know what the contract was last year? You
I-
said it
I-
was a significant increase, so I'd have to go back and look.
I think it was $55, $60 an hour or minimum cost is what I thought it was last year.
the option 2 is considerably more than it was.
Option
Oh,
one is
okay,
considerably
okay.
more.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
this-
Yes, they both.
Either option is considerably more than what it cost last year, as far as I recall.
Does anybody, Clint, do you?
I'd have to look up the actual bills, but I'm pretty sure that it was under $100 an hour.
I'm just curious also, Howard, the definitions within our ordinance, I guess are clear of what the precipitation that would trigger the next 36 hours. If you follow me, we have a snow event, and then one day later, we have a dusting of snow. That's very insignificant. Does that reset the 36 hours for people? I just see a lot of people with a $500 bill that are going to want to question last snowfall amount, what resets the clock for 36 hours,
I mean, it is a judgment call. I mean, the ordinances and the state law behind it says that sidewalks shall be free of accumulations of snow and ice. Now, is that a quarter inch? Is that a half an inch? Is that 5 inches? That's kind of the judgment call. My feeling is that if you can measure it, you know, half inch or more, it's probably an accumulation.
So you'd set that limit at a half inch, then that would reset the clock.
Yeah, I mean, initially in our policies, we don't go out until there's at least 3 inches of accumulation for the initial time. But then if it were over a half an inch, then we'd reset the clock.
Just curious about the technicality of it.
And the sidewalk is to be cleared so that a wheelchair can pass. Is that correct?
The definition is the full width of the sidewalk, yes.
And you would be directing these people to begin this process then, I assume?
Either me or the code enforcement inspector.
Fee schedule for snow and ice removal, which is snow removal and ice impact snow removal for 2024 was $50 for each, according to the January 1st, 2024 Public Works and Cemetery fee schedule, if I'm reading it correctly.
That's the administrative fee on top of whatever the
Whatever it
actual
is.
cost of doing the work.
Yeah.
The administrative fee is to compensate for code enforcement inspector's time and the finance department for sending out and taking care of the bills. I believe that we're recommending an increase of that in 2025.
I have a question, Howard. Is it possible that we inform people in the next water bill about there will be an increase, a considerable increase, no matter which way we go, there'll be a considerable increase. So at least we can't say, well, yeah, this is what happened. We voted on it, but we didn't really forewarn them.
I would have to work with the billing department to see whether or not there's room. Usually there's limited number of additional.
Leaflets?
There's a limited number of additional items, information items that can go in a bill. And I would have to work with them to see whether or not we have enough room. If we do, then we can certainly put something in there
I'm just
and
suggesting
on the
it,
website.
just to make it much easier for people to understand, because first time they hear it and they don't, or they get the bill, they're going, let's just say they're going to be rocking and rolling in this place. So if we at least say we forewarned you, at least that way we got that covered. It's only a suggestion.
Since option 2 requires us to provide the personnel and the equipment, I would be fine moving that up to $200. Since we're actually paying for someone to do it, we're getting wear and tear on equipment or possibly having to purchase more equipment. And if it were somehow phrased, our only bid was $300 to $500, $200 doesn't seem so bad.
So last year, there was no contractor to perform snow removal. I'm looking back at the packet from October 24th, 2023. There's no
Yeah.
contractor to perform snow removal. It will be done by either the Parks Division or Streets Division. And at that point in time, we said it would be a $55 minimum or $55 per hour, plus the proposed $50 administrative fee. Now, you said the administrative fee was raised when we did the fee schedule?
Correct, raised to $55.
Okay. That's, at last year, you said you were going to use the same fee structure that you used for tall grass mowing.
Yeah, we did. And in the most recent administrative fee update that came either last time or the time before, we recommended it go to $55 for both, whether it was snow and ice enforcement or weed and tall grass enforcement for 2025.
But this said the fee structure that you use for mowing tall grass. Do we still have a fee structure for mowing tall grass?
When we have a contractor do the work, it's the bid price of the contractor plus the administrative fee. So, and then what I'm saying is that the administrative fee for weeds and tall grass or
I
snow and
understand
ice
the
are the
administrative
same.
fee. I'm asking about the fee for tall grass mowing. That's what you based last year's price on for snow and ice removal, not administrative fee. I'm not talking about.
Okay, I get you now. I would have to double check to see what the tall grass fee was for this past summer. I don't know that off the top of my head.
That was contracted, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, Parks didn't do last year, it did the year before.
Howard, another question.
Go ahead.
So when contractors look at these, a contractor that's going to do high grass removal is doing it during the summer, which means less complications for them. But those that would be doing ice and snow removal would have colder weather and would be in a situation where they would have more difficult situations in accomplishing the need. So I see that the winter removal would be a higher cost than doing it during the summer. So I would structure it appropriately.
Well, does somebody have an idea? Does somebody want to offer a motion or, I mean, we've been here in discussion for a while.
Perhaps a motion to table this until the next council meeting so we can have some discussion and take a look at some of these options. My greatest concern is the impact on the elderly and people with lower means. Not so many years ago, when you have elderly people out trying to shovel snow, they were having medical problems. And I look at this $500 an hour to be a little excessive. And I would hate to see, people who are having problems out there removing snow and some sort of concern about being fined this much money. Perhaps they could hire somebody, give it a couple of weeks. We take a look at some options. Perhaps some people hear of this issue through the media, and maybe we'll get some input from the community as to what they think about these prices. Just an idea. And my motion would be to table it until the next meeting.
So table it until December 10th.
Correct.
We have a motion to table till December 10th.
I'll second.
Motions to table are not debatable.
Wait.
So,
Good idea.
so we vote on the motion to table. Colette,
No.
Yes.
Parrot. Cup.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Doss.
yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and prior to the next meeting, it might be helpful for us to understand how many properties we're talking about and whether these are repeat properties. I mean, frankly, maybe some of this has to do with the same properties every year, And we should perhaps figure out ways to address that. Sometimes I feel like we're in second grade where when I was in second grade, if one kid got caught chewing gum, that meant nobody got to go to recess because everybody got punished. And that's kind of how I feel about this. Maybe we should take a look at what our statistics really are.
There's no question there's a need. If you drive around later in the winter, you start to see places that have not been taken care of. There's no question about it. Like I said, maybe some time to think about it, some citizen input perhaps.
Okay, tabled until the next meeting, December 9th. All right, we're going on to the demolition of OE Gray. Clint.
Madam President, the city of Platteville has issued an RFP for demolition services in preparation for construction of our new fire facility. This demolition is focused on the OE Gray school buildings and then the buildings located at 220 West Adams Street or previously owned by Petersons. The demolition project was bid as a lump sum contract, which all subcontracted to the construction manager for the construction of the new facility. The RFP included a complete mass demolition of the existing buildings on the identified parcels. The RFP and associated bid documents were made available on Building Connected, Builders Exchange of Wisconsin, as well as the city's website and in our local newspaper. We opened bids on November 20th, this last week. In compliance with our bid posting, the city received 10 bid applications. The lowest qualified bid was submitted by Owens Excavating and Trenching of Hazel Green, Wisconsin. The bid form with the proposed bids are on the second page of that document. And you'll see there's quite a range, ranging from the lowest bid of $49,000 all the way up to $254,000 for that bid. And so our construction manager reached out to Owen Excavation to make sure that in fact that bid number was correct and it was not missing a digit, and it is correct for $49,000. So the staff recommendation tonight is to award the bid for demolition OE Gray and the 220 West Adams to Owen Excavating, Trenching, and Hazel in the amount of $49,000. But in order to do this technically correct, I would offer a change in the motion language to the tune of I move to authorize Kramer Brothers as our construction manager to subcontract with Owens Excavation and Trenching in the amount of $49,000 for the demolition of the OE Gray and the former Peterson properties. Because again, we've got a contract with Kramer Brothers. This would be a subcontract, but because this is a public improvement project, we have to go through the formal bidding process. Madam President.
Okay, anybody with questions on this?
This may be a silly question, but the RFP for this says demolition. It obviously means demolition and hauling away, disposing.
Correct. It's not just tear it down and leave a pile. It is to
It's
tear down and
the
remove.
whole thing.
Correct. And that is the school building plus the adjacent property buildings.
Where will they put the material that they tear down?
Do not know where they hauled the material to, and it has to probably go into two separate piles because we do have some refriable asbestos that we're aware of that'll have to be sorted out, but I'm not sure on where the
It would go to either a fill site that would accept non-hazardous materials somewhere in the vicinity, or to a landfill where that would accept the non-friable asbestos material that there is in there. But most of it would end up going to a local fill location. And
Would it
they
be
don't necessarily,
going to our old dump site?
no, it wouldn't go
It
to,
wouldn't go there.
no.
Okay.
So it wouldn't go to our site on Southwest Road.
That's correct. It would not go there.
We don't know where it's gonna go.
Yeah, it's up to the subcontractor Owens to find an appropriate location.
Okay, any other questions on this? Otherwise, it's authorizing Kramer Brothers, our construction manager, to subcontract with Owens Excavating and Trenching of Hazel Green, Wisconsin for the demolition and removal of OE Gray and the buildings on 220 West Adams Street for the amount of $49,000. Is there a completion date?
We had that in our RFP package on what it is. I forget what the time frame was.
Is it March or something?
March.
I mean, it actually won't take very long. It'll take just a few weeks, but I think there was a deadline in the RFP. I
Yeah,
can't remember.
there's a hard deadline, but it sounds like they will, start probably December 9th and should be completed by early January. So it's only about they only anticipate about a 3-week project, so.
Scheduled for our pre-construction or deconstruction meeting, if you will, next Wednesday. Is that when we're on?
I believe it is the 4th. I'd have to look again.
Okay, do I hear someone who wants to verify the motion?
I will make a motion based on what Barb said.
Did you get that?
Well,
Well-
yeah,
And she's
with
like.
Kramer's.
Authorizing Kramer
Yes,
Brothers, our
yes.
construction manager, to subcontract with Owens
Owens
for this
Excavating.
just
Yes.
not destruction, demolition and removal.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Lynn to move forward with this demolition of OE Gray and the buildings at 220 West Adams Street. Colette will vote.
No,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next we have budget amendment number 3. This is reallocation and obligation of ARPA funds.
Thank you. So we discussed this at the last meeting. To summarize the staff notes, the city of Platteville was awarded $1,265,129 of ARPA funds under the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Program. And the report in the packet demonstrates how those funds have been spent. There is one allocation that has not yet been utilized, which was the housing developer incentive in the amount of $75,000. Plus, there's an additional $10,996 of funds left over from all the other projects. And we have to comply, in order to comply with the rules, we have to obligate all funds by December 31st, 2024. Under the program, obligation is defined as an order placed or contract made for property or services that requires a future payment. And the housing developer incentive does not meet that definition, so staff are recommending reallocating that incentive instead to the purchase of a replacement mini excavator for the streets division. This city has another funding source for developer incentives, and that is the proceeds that were received from the sale of the Roundtree Hall apartments. The mini excavator can be ordered, i.e. obligated this year and then paid for in 2025, and is currently included in the CIP budget, which was just adopted earlier in this meeting with that funding source. Now, if this was, I guess if this recommendation was not passed by the council now, we would have to amend the budget and use alternate source for the mini excavator. So because of an updated quote for the mini excavator of $65,000, there would be approximately $20,996,000 remaining. So staff are recommending that the funds be allocated, the additional funds be allocated as follows: $7,000 towards the cost of the Qualls and Brady fees for the lead service line replacement program bond issue. That was an unbudgeted expense in 2024 of $7,000. And then the remainder, approximately $13,996, to help with the cost of 2024 pool wages that were not offset by pool admission revenues in 2024 due to the closure of the aquatic center. By this action, all ARPA funds will have either been expended or obligated by December 31st, 2024. Any questions?
I thought you said that these funds had to be used for things in your explanation of what the funds could be used for. How can we use funds now for something that happened already?
Right. So, way back when these funds were initially approved under the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, it was initially thought that there was going to be some pretty significant constraints on how the funds would be expended. But then as the actual implementation of that federal law went into effect, there was essentially what would be similar to like a standard deduction. So there was a threshold of $10 million that was introduced into the program. And for any municipality or recipient that received less than $10 million, the constraints were really lifted. And at that point, you could use the $10 million for almost anything. It didn't have to be related to COVID mitigation as it was in the beginning.
Right, that wasn't really my question. My question was, some of these expenses have already been paid for.
Right.
So it's kind of like backdating.
It is, and that's what I mean by
what
the,
I'm asking about.
yeah, so under
They're
the.
backdating.
So under the program, since we've received less than 10 million, we are able to apply it really to almost anything. And we report once a year, and in our report, we have to just indicate where it was spent. So, the rules are fairly relaxed about, we do have to report on where it was spent. But yeah, we
Don't have to we don't have to report that we paid for that, but now that we have extra money, we can backdate.
Yeah, as best as I understand the rules, we can apply the funds to the things we've
I
suggested.
just don't want us to get in trouble.
I don't want us to get in trouble either, but I think we're good.
Okay. Other questions? Then I'd take a motion on this budget amendment number 3, reallocating and obligating ARPA fund.
I'll make a motion. I move to reallocate ARPA funds originally assigned to the housing developer incentive to the purchase of a mini excavator, with the remaining ARPA funds applied to the cost of bond counsel for the lead service line replacement program and to supplement the 2024 pool revenues for help with coverage of the 2024 pool wages.
All right, we have a motion by Bob and a second by Ken to adopt this motion to reallocate ARPA funds. Colette will vote.
No.
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Hop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, the last action item on our agenda tonight is a budget amendment number 4. This is transferring the 2024 pay to cost from TIF number 9 to number 6, isn't it? Not from 6 to 9.
You are correct. I have
Right.
that wrong in the title, and my apologies. So
We're
it is.
transferring it from number 9 to number 6.
Yes, that's correct. So in the attachments to this staff note, you can see that the TIF 9 2024 adopted budget highlighted in green. So we're on the second page of the numbers titled TIF District 9 Overlay District at the top. In the green column, you can see there that there was $77,050 budgeted for the payday cost to be spent out of TIF 9. However, in 2024, TIF 9 does not have any increment, And so it made sense to staff that we would, instead of, so we did actually pay PADIC out of TIF 9, but what this item is asking is for the council to approve a budget amendment to move that cost from TIF 9 to TIF 6, knowing that TIF 6 is projected to more than cover all of its project costs and obligations when it closes. Right now, we hope the same of TIF 9, but because TIF 9 is so new, we don't have those projections as of yet. The question came up last time, well, what about the 2025 budget, which was just adopted, that also has budgeted for PADIC to be paid out of TIF 9? And my response to that was it's too soon to really tell what the picture will look like for either TIF. So if it makes sense again to bring this back to council to do a budget amendment for 2025 and next year, then we will do so. But right now, we're just asking for 2024 to move that cost. I will let you know that the Water Sewer Commission did approve for an advance from the utility to cover the short-term deficit in TIF 6. We're anticipating that TIF 6 will have a deficit this year for 2024. And next year, it's not clear, but there may or may not be a small deficit next year.
TIF 6 or TIF 9?
TIF 6.
Okay.
We know that TIF 6 in the long term will, we are projecting, I shouldn't say we know, it's a projection, but we're projecting that TIF 6 will recoup all of those funds through increment after all of its debt service is paid. So, the TIF was extended for 6 years. And so those last couple of years of the TIF life, it won't have any debt service. So all the increment can go to cover any other costs like repaying advances. But in the short term, this year, it still had some big debt payments and not enough increment to cover them. So the Water Sewer Commission approved, and this was what was recommended by our municipal advisors. And this is usual practice, across the state, is to utilize cash availability in the utility to provide a short-term advance to the TIF district. And so that was approved by the Water Sewer Commission, but to be repaid with interest, which seems reasonable. And so while this budget amendment will increase the deficit this year for TIF 6, at least we know that in the long term, it will be replenished and the utility would be refunded that short-term advance. So we could go either way, but it just seemed to make sense to staff that we would do it this way for 2024.
Okay, questions? Bob? You're smiling.
No, I'm just, well, it just said moving the PADIC contribution from TIF 9 to TIF 6 will increase the TIF 6 deficit?
It will for this
For this
year.
Okay.
So I guess maybe I could try to explain it another way.
Well,
if
that's
we
okay.
leave-
I just wanted to make sure. I mean, you just explained it. I just need to think about it.
I was just going to say that if we leave it in TIF 9, there'll be a deficit in TIF 9, which will also need to be covered, and there will anyway, but there would be a larger deficit in TIF 9. But we don't know right now whether that deficit would be eventually covered by tax increment. Now, we hope that it will. We assume that it will. We assume that there will be development on empty parcels in TIF 9, but we don't have that development yet generating increment. Whereas with TIF 6, while it's a short-term deficit, we do see that down the road that increment is being generated and it should result in covering that PADIC expense in the longer term. So, it's a little bit of moving the chess pieces, but it's just a little bit more obvious that it would be covered in TIF 6 than what we know about TIF 9 as of right now.
Okay, I wasn't as a PADIC expense. I was reading it as a contribution. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I would take a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve budget amendment 4 to transfer 2024 payday contribution from TIF 6
Sorry.
or
TIF 9.
TIF 9 to TIF 6.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Tom and a second by Lynn to approve budget amendment 4. Colette will vote.
Dahl,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Cop, Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, we'll move to the information section of our agenda. And the first item on information tonight is ordinance 24XX, amending section 7.04 of the municipal code, lead service line replacement delay.
Yes, thank you. Our current ordinance was passed in 2022, requiring all lead service lines to be replaced by the end of this year. This date was selected at the time because we would have been required to take samples and get results prior to a September 2025 deadline, where the DNR could have required us to inject chemicals into the water to reduce the corrosion of lead. In the meantime, Superintendent Kowalski has performed the 2 rounds of testing 6 months apart in accordance with the DNR guidelines, resulting in our lead levels below the levels required, 15 micrograms per liter or parts per billion. DNR has sent us a letter saying that we have met the requirements and will not be required to inject the orthophosphates. So what we're saying is that the urgency so that we don't need to inject phosphates is no longer present. Lead is still hazardous. We still need to get rid of all the lead lines in properties. As of November 14th, there were 44 properties that had not taken action to comply. We felt that if they waited until the very end, it's highly unlikely that they would be able to do it until spring anyways. The penalty for not doing it by the deadline was that the Water and Sewer Commission or the utility could turn off their water. The commission felt that with the relaxing of requirements by the DNR, that it would make a lot more sense to delay our deadline until June 30th into the summer, so that these people can still complete their replacements in the spring and not have their water shut off. The funding for the LSL replacements is a separate utility. It does not impact the city's general fund or water and sewer utility. And so staff and the Water and Sewer Commission recommend that we revise the deadline to June 30th.
Howard, I don't think the DNR relaxed their standards. I think that was a misstatement. Wasn't it
Okay.
that we met?
We were able to prove that we met their standards.
Right, so they didn't
Correct.
relax their
They did
standards.
not, you're correct. They did not relax their standards. We were able to prove that we met
Met the current standard.
met the current standards in plenty of time so that they could return the finding that we did not require to do chemical
The
injections.
orthophosphates. Okay, any questions on this?
We have 44 properties that are
Still haven't
still
taken
out there.
any action.
So if we extend this deadline to June 30th, are we to assume that if they still do not take action to comply, that their water shut off?
Yes,
That is the leverage, right?
Mhm.
yes,
Got
that's
it.
the
Okay.
leverage.
All right.
Okay, this will be on our agenda for action at the next meeting. And I'm assuming that those 44 property owners have been told and told again.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution, idle sites redevelopment grant application for 825 East Business Highway 151. Joe?
Yes, so that 825 East Business Highway 151, it's former Honeywell property. It's been recently been purchased by a group of investors. They're looking at kind of redividing the building up to allow for multiple tenants in that building. They have some other building and site improvements that need to be done as well, new roof, parking lot, et cetera. So they've got some preliminary cost estimates of over $600,000 to do the work that they would like to do, which obviously is a lot of money. So they're looking for some opportunities for grant assistance to reduce those costs. So Abby from Bedic has been working with them on a potential option to submit an application for an idle sites redevelopment grant through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. So that if approved, that would provide up to $250,000 in matching funds. So that program, the way it works is the city is technically the applicant for that program. If awarded, we would get the funds. We would then have a development agreement with the property owners. They would do the required work. They would have to provide the required match. Our input would basically be staff time in managing the grant. So we've never actually used this particular program, but it's structured essentially the same as the community development, the CDI grants, which we've done 2 or 3 of those over the years. So very similar to that. Like I said, Abby's been working with the property owner if you have any specific
Abby, do you want to
questions
come
on their
to the-
project.
to the podium in case somebody has a question?
But I did include some information on the grant program in your packet as well as the draft grant application narrative.
Okay, questions on this? Everybody understands where the property is? On the top of the hill by Rundy Chevrolet, just west of that? Abby, is this a competitive grant program or is this?
Can get up to 1 per fiscal year per community. It is competitive within the state of Wisconsin as there's only a limited amount of funds. Our WEDC representative did let us know this last month that they are not accepting any new applications. Luckily, we were in the application portal prior to that. So we're one of the last ones they are considering for this fiscal year.
And when would they find out?
Once our next meeting would be the 10th, so then we would have this developer agreement is the last portion that would do the application. 4 weeks, up to 4 weeks after that. Yes.
Not a guarantee.
I would say it's at like 80% right now that it would be obligated.
Anybody else with any questions?
Yeah, who's going to write the grant?
I already did.
It's already written. It's in your packet.
But I mean, okay, the writing, the overseeing if it's awarded, because I understand that it goes to Joe, so it comes back to city staff.
Yes, we have to have a financial manager for the grant to, basically, they would submit receipts of work done, to then receive the money from the city. I believe a wire transfer comes in for CDI of the 250,000 into the city, and then the city allocates it out once receipts of work done.
Is there ongoing work to monitor that grant?
There is a report that I would fill out after all funds are obligated out. It's about 6 months after that paperwork has to be completed, and I would work with the developer to complete that.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll expect to take action on that idle sites grant application at the next meeting. We'll move on to referendum advisory question. Bob?
Thank you. As you know, in May of 2024, the Platteville Family Aquatic Center and pool vessel sustained catastrophic damage. In August, the Platteville Aquatic Recreation Subcommittee, known as PARS, was chartered and appointed and began assembling information and planning for potential replacement or new pool. PARS has met several times since August, and a great deal of work has been completed. It's led by Alderperson Gates, including a survey of residents' opinions on replacing the pool. The survey results show a majority in favor of replacing the pool, with a strong support if the pool were to incur higher taxes. PARS and the Parks Committee comes before the council with a request to approve a referendum advisory question to be placed on the ballot in April 2025. PARS is recommending the following language for the question. Should the city of Platteville borrow up to $6.9 million for the construction of a replacement aquatic center? I put a note in here, in lieu of the ballot advisory referendum, council may, by ordinance, waive the referendum requirement. I put a copy of the ordinance in there for easy viewing. Staff is recommending the council approve a referendum advisory question be put on the April 2025 general election or take action to waive the advisory referendum requirement of the city's code 3.42 by a majority vote. We've got several attachments there, and I'm going to defer to Alderperson Gates. He's also the PARS Committee chairperson to explain or answer questions regarding the attachments.
Do you prefer that I go to the lectern or stay right here?
Stay there if it's okay with you.
Okay. I guess just to echo what Bob said, the community is in, I guess, very strong support of the outdoor pool. And 92% of the people who responded to the survey were in favor and said it's very important for Platteville to have an outdoor aquatic center. 89 said either they or someone in their family would use it. And the majority said they would support a tax increase if that's what was necessary to get the pool. As Bob said, we don't have to do a referendum. When we talked to the communities around here, none of them did. But we feel that it is important to do one, even though we could technically waive it. PARS is not asking for that. And we think it's important that the community be involved in this as much as possible, and even more than a survey, and that's what the referendum would be for. The papers that you have in front of you that Bob referred to, one is kind of a simple checklist of what the different options would be. The one that's 11 by 17 inches gives a more detailed cost structure of the different options. And that's how we arrived at the $6.9 million in the advisory referendum question. There is another sheet in there that gives some tax impact estimates, but those are figured using a very rudimentary calculation. And that is just kind of a guesstimate. The real figures will come from Ellers, and we've contacted Ellers, and we're waiting to get a more exact tax impact estimate from them, but that probably won't happen until late December. And it may seem like we're kind of rushing a referendum, but we're doing it out of necessity. As I mentioned last time, there are no elections scheduled for August or November in 2025. So if a referendum weren't presented April of 2025, the next election is April of 2026. So that would delay everything by 12 months. And we're also afraid it would increase the costs. I mean, anytime you put off construction for a year, generally the cost goes up. And that's why it's important that we do. Any questions?
We also had a frequently asked question document in.
Yes, that was there because, we gave you a lot of information 2 weeks ago. And it was a lot to absorb in one night. And I know that you probably had questions, or at least thought of questions between now and then. And those frequently asked question responses were hopefully to clarify any questions that you had or answer them. And in the website, that PlattevilleSurvey.com website that Cody and Josh presented last time, in addition to the survey results, there is now a frequently asked question section that's active. So the public can go on there and see simple answers to frequently asked questions.
Okay, so Bob is asking, or Pars is asking, the pool, whatever, pool, something, something committee. I don't know what it stands, I can't remember what it stands for. Is
Platteville.
asking the council to approve a referendum advisory question to be put on the April ballot. The reason this has to be done at this point in time, twofold in terms of coming before the council now for approval in December to meet the timelines associated with publication and all of that kind of stuff.
Correct. It has to go to the court, the clerk. I believe it's 72 days prior
Prior
to
to the
the
election.
election, which puts us in mid-January. It's around January 20th that would be the deadline for them to receive it. They prefer to receive anything that has to go on a ballot before that, but that would be the absolute deadline.
Okay, and the question, should the city of Platteville borrow up to 6.9 million for the construction of a replacement aquatic center? The question was formulated how?
Well,
I mean, who, where, how did the
the
question?
question was formulated through a series of meetings.
Okay,
Barb and Kathy and Clint, Bob, Nicola and I met and came up with a question that we then presented to PARS. And they made some modifications to that question. And then our modified question was sent to William Cole, the city attorney. And he came back and even had a simpler question, which is the format that this question is posed in right now.
so I asked that only
Yes.
because people might ask about, well, is this really a legal question or how did you
Oh,
put this language?
He even our first iteration was legally appropriate. And he just wanted to make it, I guess, simpler, easier to read and understand.
Other questions? Tom?
If you do not do the referendum, but the council went ahead and decided to do the bond issue,
Mhm.
is that going to save any time?
Yes, it could save time if an engineer were hired earlier. Because right now, that was an option. Communities have done that. And one thing we were considering is possibly hiring an engineer just to do more of a two-dimensional concept drawing and a ballpark cost estimate. Not hiring the engineer to actually come up with the construction plans with the specifications. So it would be, it'd be an expense. We do have $225,000 in the capital improvement plan set aside for the pool. And the expense of doing that would be more in the ballpark of $20,000 or so. That's kind of what our estimate has been. But that wouldn't be hiring the engineer to start the design of the pool. It would just be to show the public what we could possibly get for the $6.9 million. Good question.
Well, I guess I have a question for the council is what is in the best interest for the city to do a referendum or to approve issuance of a bond?
Tackle that first. Being part of that committee, I personally feel that while the results of the public survey were very favorable, everybody was, yeah, we want the pool, we use it. The question with the referendum is where, the rubber hits the pavement. It's a question, should we borrow, which means the citizens are going to have to ask themselves, okay, literally they're at this, it sounds like the city might do this. but to get their input on whether or not we take that next step. I personally would feel very uncomfortable if we didn't do that and just said, we're going to do that without more input from. And it works with the timeline to have it on the April ballot.
I have no question about that. I'm just raising the issue.
Yeah, I know.
Other comments? Other questions? And this would be a question for financial, for our financial team. I don't know if we would have the capacity within levy limits. I mean, if we pass a referendum issue that says we want to borrow 6.9, does that help us in terms of levy limit language?
Well, debt service of the city is what we call a levy limit adjustment. So we can exceed the levy limit in the amount of debt service for any debt that's outstanding for the city. So I think the answer to your question is yes, you could. But we'll get to the point where all of the amount over the levy limit is needed for that debt service. So in other words, borrowing more money doesn't help with our overall levy because the excess over the levy limit would need to go to paying off that debt. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, then this will come back to us at the December meeting for a vote in terms of putting this question on the ballot in April. All right, next on our agenda then is award contract 22-24 for fixed route bus service. Fixed route?
Yes. Thank you. DOT requires a RFP, request for proposal process for all public transportation contracts. The current provider did not wish to extend the existing contract, so we put out the contract for proposals in September. The proposals were due back at the end of October, and this would be a 2-year contract with a fixed price per hour and then up to 3 one-year extensions. And those extensions would have the contract price increase in accordance with the Consumer Price Index. We received 2 proposals, one from Russ Stratton Buses, the people who have been doing it for the past few years, and a new service called Davis Bus Lines out of Darlington. An evaluation committee was formed, reviewed the proposals, and very late this afternoon, we got approval from the DOT to make what we call a notice of intent to award to Davis Bus Lines out of Darlington to be our new bus service. Now, what has to happen is there needs to be 10 business days for people to lodge official protests prior to actually awarding. So because of Thanksgiving, when we do this next time, it will be on business day number 9. So we would have to just award it contingent on nobody putting in a last minute protest. But it would be to Davis Bus Lines. The contract price is higher than the current price, but it's about 2.5 times, or the second proposal was about 2.5 times the price per hour of the one that was selected. So
So will you be sharing those?
I will be
details?
sharing that. I will be sharing that next time.
And as part of the evaluation process and the RFP, are these bus lines required to submit recommendations or any kind of proof of service or anything like that? Just,
Yes, the evaluation process is a 100-point process. 70 points are on technical considerations, competence, capacity to perform the work, and I can't remember the other one. And then the fourth component is price, which is 30% of the contract points awarded. I had a group composed of members from the university, since the university pays 100% of the local match required for the federal and state grants for the fixed bus service. So they did that evaluation, and I want to thank them for the time that they took doing that. But competence and capacity and all those things, references, financial capacity, all of those things are part of that process.
anybody with questions on the fixed route bus contract for 2025 to 2029? Okay, we'll expect to see more information and have that on the agenda for action at our next meeting. And the last item on our information agenda is the emergency services agreement. Clint.
Madam President, in your packet, at the very end, you're going to find a draft copy of the emergency services agreement. It's provided through Southwest Health as negotiated between myself, staff, President Doss was involved, and with leadership over at Southwest Health. And thank you again, President Doss, for bringing this to my attention as I let this one slide, and Barb reached out to me to make sure we had it on here tonight. In the agreement, you're going to see that it's an agreement that includes the communities of City of Platteville, City of QB City, and the various townships in the Platteville EMS district. Southwest will continue providing ambulance services, maintaining all necessary personnel, equipment, in compliance with the Wisconsin regulations. The municipalities in return agree to provide dispatch services and contribute to the annual service fee, or ASF, which is calculated based on population data and allocated per capita within the service area. And that's a little bit different from the previous agreement, which we'll talk about in greater depth. The ASF will help cover unreimbursed costs for operating the paramedic level services and other associated expenses, with adjustments made annually based on the operating deficits. An agreement also outlines the terms that are shared financial responsibility among the parties and includes provisions for potential termination and modification of participation. It specifies that the agreement will run through December 31st of 2034 with automatic renewals unless terminated by a partner with appropriate notice. If Southwest ceases to provide services, Platteville has the right of first refusal to purchase the necessary assets, and we would return to be then the provider, of which we hope very much that that does not occur. The goal is to ensure ongoing, coordinated, and cost-effective emergency medical services for the residents in the participating municipalities. The major change, as mentioned earlier, to this contract as compared to our existing contract is the design of an annual service fee that's associated, and its associated increase in the rates. The current agreement is capped with the partner's annual service fee of $150 annually, roughly $115,000 of that apportioned to the City of Platteville. In review of the emergency services financial performance data from previous years, the ASF from the partners did not bridge the gap in operating losses, and Southwest Health was absorbing these losses in many of the years. The adjusted rates reflect past expenditures, trends, and forecast increases. Southwest Health's goal is for them to operate emergency services with financial efficiency and at a zero net loss. To address this increase, staff has assessed several scenarios of increasing service charges to cover these increases, and then the overall expenses of you're seeing the increases is the table there underneath the financial impacts for the different categories of those properties. Behind this, then, you're going to see a copy of the drafted actual agreement, in which was brought to my attention that all the townships have came back in the affirmative that they don't have any further issues with it, and several townships have already signed into this agreement. Behind that, then, you're going to see a copy of the service area for the ambulance district, which includes the entire municipality of Platteville. And then you'll see the calculation breakdown of the ambulance service fees as related to the city of Platteville and how it's arriving on our utility bills. Madam President.
Okay, folks, questions on this? It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. Our initial agreement with Southwest Health was for 10 years. It's actually been hard to believe it's been 10 years since we haven't been in the ambulance business in the city. Something I'm very happy about. And so questions on this emergency services agreement?
I have a question on the previous location. Does the city still own that previous building that's next to the tower over there?
Yes. Yes, we do. It's currently being used by the Streets Division as unheated storage.
Okay. And then my recollection is that in this first agreement that we had with the hospital, that when I figured it out, it came out that it resulted that we paid for the building that was built out there at the hospital with our payment. Do you know that? Do you know that answer?
Our annual service fee that we put to them covers the entirety of the operations. I don't know the mechanics behind their operations and if they've got that building all paid for. I'm assuming that we're contributing to part of that
Yes,
to the building project.
What I figured out, and you can see if this is correct, what I figured out is that through the years, what we paid resulted in that cement block building being paid for by our contribution. So I was wondering what's going to happen now. And I thought the timing was 7 years, not 10 years as being said here. What's going to happen after the 7 years is up? So apparently this is the answer. They're going to start this over again.
Right.
Right.
I think that's,
Yeah, that's the intent of.
that was the intent, I think, in the beginning.
But they didn't really say at the beginning.
From my recollection, I
You on the council then?
Yeah.
Tom was on the council.
that, yes, they were saying they would come back after 10 years and it
10
would be renegotiated, which I think at the time, we all understood the situation that the city really didn't want to have the responsibility of an ambulance service. And to provide the necessary medical staff to take care of that was going to be beyond our means. So that's why we went with Southwest Health, which at the time I thought was very good of them to at least make the proposal and we come together on it. So yes, I very much remember approving that.
I guess what's a question in mind is whether it's 7 years or 10 years. Do you have any way as a
Well, the
city
contract
manager
was
to
10
find
years.
out which is correct?
Yeah, the contract was 10 years, wasn't it? Yeah.
My understanding, we can double check it though, and I can
Yeah.
provide you a copy with that
Good.
previous one as well. Yep.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I
Okay.
realize the old building that we have here in Platteville leaked, poor construction, etc. It was not suitable for usage.
It actually had mold in it.
Yeah,
Not a good thing
it was
for an ambulance.
poor location, poor construction. It was a cheap build. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
That's it for me for now.
Okay. Then this will come back on the agenda for approval at our December meeting. And that takes us to the end of this this agenda, there is no closed session scheduled, so I would take a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
We have a motion by Tom and a second by Lynn to adjourn. Colette will vote.
Null,
Yes.
Harriet,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
motion carries.